Hey everyone, welcome back to Conversations with Ordinary People. Today's episode is called The Why Continued. And it's a special one because my wife's taken over the microphone. She's interviewing me about what inspired this podcast, the key moments that changed my life, how I learned to dream big, and what I hope to build through these conversations. So let's jump in. Hey, you're listening to Conversations with Ordinary People, honest stories, real reflections, and human connection.
Hey, thanks for having me on the podcast. It was great to listen to episode 1 and hear a little bit more of your why behind Conversations with Ordinary People. So I'd love to delve deeper into that today with you and put you on the guest seat for a minute.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. So why don't we start with why you to host this podcast? Why are you the right person? Tell me a little bit about your background in terms of broadcasting and all of that.
So I have close to 10 years experience in broadcasting. I used to work for a radio station, a commercial radio station. I was a radio presenter that's why I got the opportunity to familiarize myself with broadcasting, interview people, just be able to communicate with a wider audience. At first, it was a bit nerve-wracking. I remember starting at the radio station and thinking, whenever I'll mess up, I'm like, oh man, people are hearing me right now. But after a while, I just felt like the listeners were family. And I was just taking them on the road. I did different shows. I remember one of my favorite shows was the Weekend Party Show, where I remember telling people, this is where the weekend starts, getting you all pumped up for the weekend. In my mind, I was getting people ready to go out to the clubs, and it was just a great place for them to just start their weekend officially. And I remember I used to say that the weekend has officially started. It was fun times. So yeah, close to 10 years experience in broadcasting. And I remember when I left, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I need to get back to the radio, but where I am currently, it's just so difficult. It's not feasible. So I've always thought of a way to get back to listeners, get back to the mic, get back to that space. And I found it. Yeah.
Okay. And did you want to name drop your radio station for us? Where did you used to work?
Oh, yeah. Capital Radio in Freetown, Sierra Leone. If you know Capital Radio.
104.9.
104.9.
Yeah. It was a great place to work. I might be a bit biased, though. So getting into that's your experience as a person for hosting this podcast, but why this particular podcast? Why Conversations with Ordinary People? Especially in this era where we see this focus on extraordinary. We all want to follow the person who has 1 million followers.
Oh, yeah. It's all about the followers. Yeah.
We all want to be celebs or close to celebs. So why are you focused on the ordinary people? Like maybe the people who don't have a social media profile or the people who we haven't heard of. Why do you want to have them on the podcast?
I love stories. I've always been a lover of stories. I believe we live vicariously through people, through their lives and through their stories. I've always been fascinated with hearing people talk about experiences. And why Conversation with Ordinary People in this time? I believe this is the perfect time to have a platform like this, because the world we live in, even though we feel like it's getting smaller with the internet, the invention of the internet, but I think we're going further and further apart, whether it be gender differences, race, sex, different things that are just trying to drive a wedge between us. But we are connected. We've always been connected. Being human means we are connected. We are in this journey, this space together. We're here on earth for a reason. And I think that's why Conversations with Ordinary People is important. It's a space to remind people of that connection, to remind people that your story in one part of the world can be shared and might be something similar to what someone else is going through on the other side of the world.
Right. And the power of conversation, right? Because I think we've all experienced where you walk into a room and everyone in the room is on their phones, not looking up at each other, or you're sitting on the bus and everyone's just scrolling through their feed. So I've heard people describe it as we're in this era where we're more connected than ever, but we're also more disconnected than ever.
That is correct.
I love that you're taking a moment to pause almost through these conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need to slow down. And it's very important to slow down. I was talking to a friend the other day about slowing down to appreciate what you have in the present. Because I think we live in a world, and especially being in North America, where I sometimes equate it to being close to the epicenter of where it's always about the next thing, right? Like, I want the next
so
light.
Focused on what's coming up.
What's coming? What do I want? And this is a space where we pause and say, hey, let's reflect together.
Right. Reflect. That's a great word. So it sounds like this podcast is going to be based on a lot of reflection. And I wanted us to go back to the moment I think you first had this idea for the podcast. You were telling me about it, and it was because you had been talking with a friend who you grew up with, and he was reflecting on something, and something about that story he told you really resonated, and out of that wanted to start this podcast. So share a little bit with us about not the full story, because I know we might have him as a guest later on.
Yes.
But share a bit with us about that moment and what that was like, and why did that spur you wanting to start this?
So I believe in divine interventions. As I said, I've thought about a podcast for the longest time. My biggest problem was, what should it be about, right? I had different ideas. But then I had a conversation with a friend. This friend, of course, I knew his story growing up. He had it rough growing up. But this particular day, he shared something, a story of his life, the way he told it, and as he was going through telling me the story, I saw the scenes, like things that he was going through, the pain and everything. And at the end of the story, I said to him, you will be the perfect guest for my podcast. Like, when I start my podcast, you're going to be a guest on it. And we laughed about it. But after that, his story stayed with me. It lingered for whatever reason. Like, I think looking back, it was because he was vulnerable. That vulnerability sparked something in me. I connected with it. And I think he felt safe enough to share that with me, because there was no reason for him to do that. But he felt safe enough. For whatever reason, that environment, that conversation was a safe space for him to share that. And it stayed with me. I've had different podcast ideas over the years, but this one lingered for whatever reason. And I just kept thinking about it. And then eventually I was like, that's it. It should be about conversations, just people telling their stories.
Right.
Yeah.
You said something there I really love and want to touch on, which is safe space. So I've done a lot of that in my own work, like working on creating safe spaces for people. But I love that you want that within this podcast. Like, whoever you have as a guest, you want this to be a safe space. So what does that mean? Like, for you as a host, how can you create a space where, if you've known the person your whole life, if you've known them for 10 years, or if you just met them like a month ago and you said, hey, you want to jump on my podcast? Like, how can you create the same safe space for all of those guests who you're going to have on the show?
So it's really a platform where there's no judgment, safe space by listening, active listening. Of course, asking the whys, because I think that's important. But it's guest-led in a way. It's their story. However they want to tell it, whatever pace they want to go at. It's technically an opportunity for me to be like, hey, listen, I'm just the other person here. I'm here to listen, to probe you a bit, right? To understand like the reasons for some of the actions. But it's just an opportunity for you to paint your picture.
Yeah. I love that you titled the first 2 episodes The Why, because I think that's one of your favorite questions, which I'm sure your listeners will get to know. And interestingly, like one of our kids, it's also one of her favorite questions too. So maybe she gets that from you. Maybe one day she can be a guest on the podcast. But let's talk a little bit about the name Conversations with Ordinary People, because there was a moment, I think we were driving in the car.
Yeah.
It's connected to a song somehow. Tell us about the name for the podcast and why the name.
So I knew it had to be conversations. And then I was like, oh, conversation with what? And I think along the way, we thought of John Legend's song, Ordinary People, right? And we were like, yes, conversation with ordinary people. And then we jokingly said, oh, it would be a great idea if that could be like an intro tune and everything. And he quickly realized that, it might not
licensing.
happen. But who knows? Maybe John Legend will listen.
Yeah, John, if you're listening, call us up and let us know if we can use the song.
And this is for humanity, John. So, but it will be perfect. A great idea. And that's how it started. Like, conversation with ordinary people, and his song being such, a great iconic song. We're like, oh yeah, that's a great connection. We want to talk to ordinary people, the people that the media and the world will overlook. I believe that everybody has a story. We all have really good, inspiring stories within us, just waiting to be told.
Yeah, and as John Legend would say, we're just ordinary people.
Just
right?
ordinary
but
people.
With extraordinary stories.
Yes. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more conversations with ordinary people.
So, light of extraordinary stories, you and I have talked a lot about the moment. Sometimes we call it the butterfly effect, or the moment you look back on in your life and you think, if this one thing had not happened, everything would have been different. Or if this one thing had happened a different way, I might not be where I am today.
Yeah.
So tell us about one of those moments in your life. Like, what is one moment you look back on and you're like, oh man, if that moment hadn't happened, it could be good or bad. But that moment you knew set you up for who you are today.
I have a couple of those moments, but I think the one that comes to mind is how I started working at Capital Radio. It was from a conversation. Again, conversations. Myself and a friend, we're talking to another friend. We're talking about relationship, love, and all that. And that friend we were talking to was working at Capital Radio at the time. And we jokingly said, hey, you should invite us on your show so we can talk about relationships, right? And the friend jokingly said, oh, we're looking for presenters. You guys should come to the station. And I said, yeah, sure, I will. A couple of months went by. I was listening to this friend on the radio, and I just sent them a message like, hey, how's it going? And the friend said, oh, you should come to the radio station. Long story short, I ended up going. A friend did a test of my voice. I heard my voice. I was like, wow, that's crazy. The next day I started my training.
Wow.
So that moment, that conversation the three of us had, right, sparked something. And of course, I took it upon myself to go to the radio station, and I started training. And at that period in my life, I was super busy, really busy.
Yeah.
But I felt in my spirit that I had to do it. I remember telling my sister that, oh, I just started training at Capital Radio. And she was like, you're really busy right now. This is not the time to do that. But I said, nope, I want to do it.
Conviction, right?
Conviction.
Like knowing you're
Yes.
doing the right thing, even if people around you might not agree.
Yes, yes. And I felt it at that particular moment. It all happened, spawned from that conversation we had.
So what are some things that came out of that? Like what are things about you or about your life now that might not be the same if you hadn't taken that job?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think another reason why I took that job was because I wanted to put myself out there. I've always been a very shy person, so I wanted to stretch myself and just give myself a challenge. But a couple of the things that happened from that decision to work and take up that offer. First of all, we met at the radio station.
We did, yeah.
So that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't had that conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe
we
at
wouldn't
that
have
place.
these three lovely higgly piggies.
Yes. I got my second job
Yeah,
from
true.
that radio station.
And your second job was very close to that radio
Very
station,
close
right?
to it, yes. So a couple of things did happen.
And even this podcast, really, if you think about it, because if
Yes.
you hadn't have fallen in love with broadcasting,
Well, yeah.
you might not have tried to find your way back to broadcasting.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
I think one thing I've always loved about you is your ability to not just dream big, but you jump into your dreams with so much, I don't know what I would say, like gusto. Because I think lots of us like dream, we're like, oh yeah. Because I'm just thinking to myself in like university, if someone had said, oh, you should just like come by the radio station and hop on. Yeah, I might not have the next day like showed up and done that. But I love that like the radio station, that's a part of what you're doing, even the podcast, like you just jump into things with both feet. I think it's such a great thing for all of us to learn from in whatever capacity we can.
Sometimes I do have my saboteur in my head telling me, "This, do you think it will work? Do you think people will want to listen to your podcast?"
But it's like confidence, right? Like the confidence that you have, like you dream so big, and then you know how some people dream big and they're like, "Oh, that'll never happen." Like you dream big and you're like, "That could actually happen."
Yes.
One of my favorite stories about you, which we'll talk about maybe on another podcast if you let me interview you again, but how when you were younger and you were obsessed with Harry Potter.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if there's any Potter, what do you call them?
Potterheads.
Potterheads out there. Yeah, I am not a Potterhead, but it's fine. But you told me about how, well, I'll let you tell the story. Something about J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter and how you knew you were going to be in Harry Potter. Tell us what that was like.
Well, I wanted to be in Harry Potter. So, yes, huge fan of Harry Potter growing up. Every day on my way to school, I had like maybe 10 minutes part of the journey where I had to walk to school. So maybe I'll take a taxi to a spot and then I'll walk the rest of the way to school. And as always, when you walk in, you have a lot of time to kill, right? Mm-hmm. And at that time, Harry Potter was my entire world. So I used to think to myself, it would be cool if J.K. Rowling could create a character, like I guess with my name, in the Harry Potter universe. And, you know, at that time, I didn't even think much of it. It was like, that would be cool. Because the thing about me, my philosophy is, it's free to dream. There's no limitations.
But just to contextualize this, were you living in LA or the UK when you had this dream?
Freetown, Sierra Leone.
So Sierra Leone, for some of our listeners, maybe they don't know the population. It's like, it's as big as America, right? What's the population of Sierra Leone?
Quite small.
Like, quite small as in how many people?
Like 7 to 8 million.
So this is what I'm saying. Like, and you really believed like she's just going to call me up and she's going to cast that. Yeah. And it wasn't even like she would cast you as like she was going to write a role for you in the universe.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I did believe that.
Yeah.
I did believe that because, you know, I think limitations sometimes it's something that people are taught. People are told not to dream big.
True.
I grew up in a household where my mom never said anything like that, right? I had like crazy dreams. Looking back now, they were crazy, but I think that's the beauty of imagination, right?
Yeah.
I've always
and it's free.
It
right?
is free. So the next step is you have to do something about it. That's up to you. You can dream. You can dream to be a millionaire, and then what you do about that's what determines the outcome. That's my belief. And that's why I've always been able to like jump into things. When I think of some things, like there are usually voices in my head saying, this might not work. But over the years, I've had the ability to silence those voices and be like, okay, what do I need to do? What strategy do I need to put in place? I didn't do anything about the Harry Potter because that was just fantasy. I was just dreaming, but it was okay.
But let's focus on that dreaming for a second. So this podcast, Conversations with Ordinary People, if you could see this podcast 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, down the road, what would be your dream for the podcast? And what would be your dream for all of us who are going to be listening to it?
That's a good question. I see a community. I see a space where people, everything we talked about, how we're all connected, our stories, even though we sometimes think our stories are unique. You can be on one side of the world going through something and someone else on the other side of the world is going through something similar, right? And I want us to realize that, to understand that we are connected and to make those connections. So build a community. People understand that we are connected and we just find common ground, right? We understand that we might have different perspectives on things, but we are all one. We are connected. So it's that connection piece. Connect people, create a community, create a space where people can be safe enough to tell stories. But also, most importantly, I think I want people to understand the art of conversation, how to have a meaningful conversation.
Yeah, with each other.
With each other, right? There's always a place for fluff conversation, but I want people to be vulnerable enough to dive deeper.
Yeah.
And feel safe enough also. Create safe spaces for people where they feel safe enough to tell their stories and be seen and heard by others.
Because I think deep down, we don't all want to be talking about the weather, right? Or the score of, especially not the score of last night's baseball game. But deep down, that's not really what we want, right? We crave this connection and we crave getting to know people on this more intimate, deeper level. So I love that. That's the goal of the podcast. Any closing words to our listeners, what we can look forward to in episodes to come? Anything else you want to tell us?
So we have a couple of guests lined up so far for this first season, different individuals, different stories. We're going to hear about ordinary people, about their lives. We're going to hear about their mistakes, their highs, their lows. We just talked about like a turning point, right?
Yeah.
That is going to be a focal question, a center for a lot of the conversations I'll be having with the guests. So we'll hear all of that, but then this season, I think it will be good for people to see that connection already. Because my guests are going to be from Europe, all the way from South Asia, from West Africa, maybe from South America, all of those places, because I want to create a connection to tell people that we are connected.
Yeah, no matter how different we are, we all have some similar thread in our stories, right?
Yes.
That's beautiful. Any closing words or anything?
If you're not currently subscribed or following Conversations with Ordinary People, you can find the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon Music, and everywhere else you get your podcasts. So go subscribe. And
also on Instagram as well? You have an Instagram account?
Yes, on Instagram and on TikTok as well.
Okay.
We're going to be posting some clips on TikTok and Instagram, and very soon we're going to get a Facebook page as well. So go follow, be a part of the conversation, be a part of this community. If you're a fan of real, authentic conversations, reflection, people-centered conversation, I think you will want to be a part of this podcast and this platform, Conversations with Ordinary People.
And ordinary people with extraordinary stories, right?
Yes.
So if that's you, reach out and maybe you can be a guest on the podcast one day too.
We do want to hear from you because,
Yeah.
We want to talk to a lot of people and create the connections and just let people know that we are all one. We have to love one another.
Thanks so much for having me on the podcast today. And I can't wait to come back a few years down the road and see how far you've taken it from your humble beginnings in your living room and the stairway closet to where it'll get to.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for having me.
That's it for this episode of Conversations with Ordinary People. Follow, share, and leave a quick review. And if you've got a story to tell, reach out. Until next time, be open, be kind, and keep the conversation going.